The college football experience, Michigan State Spartans 2023 season preview episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Networks, brought to you by Circa Sports. Circa Sports is back with their Circa Survivor and Circa Millions contest. $14 million are up for grabs. Whew. Get all the details at circasports.com. And remember, folks, as always, to let it ride.
This is my team, Cleese, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
Yes, yes, yes. Woo! Welcome. Welcome to the college football experience. Michigan State Spartans 2023 season preview episode. I'm excited to talk Sparty. It's always fun to talk Sparty, and just to me, the Big Ten East. It's just always. I mean, I do love the Big Ten West, as you know, Patty C. I tell you all the time, Big Ten West football is kind of like watching the games in the 1950s, and I can dig that. I can appreciate that.
Kind of like watching
football.
the MAC.
Yeah, well, no, the MAC passes way more than the Big Ten West.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, look, but then you have the Big Ten East, which has got heavyweights. You know, you got the Ohio State, you got Michigan State, you got. Michigan, I guess. Where's the Michigan State pod? All right,
Don't
come
pander
on.
to the Michigan State folks.
And then you got Penn State, and then you got the power of Rutgers to play the first ever college football game. Let's go. All right. Look, you're probably wondering just who the hell is the idiot you were listening to. Well, my name is Colby Swiggin, Database Dan, a.k.a. Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I'm probably drinking too much and celebrating too much and not sleeping. Would have killed a normal man, but no, that's gone. The medical advice I got from that was like being hit by lightning. Pretend it never happened and get on with your life.
Yes, sometimes you got to pretend it never happened to get along with your life.
Yeah.
Some would say maybe you say that about
the 2022 Michigan State.
Yeah, a little bit after that big 21.
Yeah,
a little regression, but hey, sometimes that happens. I am joined by my co-host. Give it up for former JMU Duke defensive back, the burrito eating, sideline kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, Patty C in the place to be.
hi.
Let's get it going.
Yeah,
you know Hightower from Police Academy, Michigan State grad.
Is that right?
You know James Caan from The Godfather, Michigan State grad. Played, I actually think both. Actually, at one point, were on the Michigan State football team.
Hello.
Kirk Gibson. We're not that far from Dodger Stadium where he just drilled that thing out of here.
Let me ask you a question.
What's
Is this? Maybe we should ask our guests here.
Well, I got to introduce them
the
first.
question
They don't
here.
know that they haven't seen or heard him yet.
We're gonna ask him this. Is this Michigan's real team? Is this the
the real rivalry?
The people's Michigan team?
Okay, we're going to ask him this. We are lucky enough to have a guest on the show here. If you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/the college experience. Give it up for he covers Michigan State football for Spartan Illustrated and Rivals. I give you one, Brendan Moore. How you doing, Brendan?
Doing good, guys. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, love having you on the show to enlighten us also about the Big Ten, and specifically Michigan State for this episode. But I guess going back to Patty C's question, I'm curious, what is is the average Michigander? Is that a word? I don't even know.
It is.
Are they saying, well, Michigan's kind of the snobby school and Michigan State's more the blue collar? Tell me about the feel. And you went to Michigan State, so I guess this is kind of a loaded question, but talk to me about, perhaps the differences between the two.
Well, I'll admit this. Michigan is the better school academically. Great school. I'll give them their props there. But Michigan State, yeah, they kind of do have that, I guess, mentality of kind of being the underdog because Michigan has a bigger rival in Ohio State. That's typically one of the best games of the year, one of the premier college football games of the year. And Michigan State, sometimes they feel a little left out, and it gets intense between Michigan and Michigan State.
Yeah, and I was wondering, I think that rivalry is one of the best games. Also, Michigan State. As much as I love the Ohio State Michigan rivalry. It's one of the best in all the sports. But Michigan State, I think, is a low key great rivalry too. And I know Mel Tucker is kind of getting some people saying he's on the hot seat, but he's 2-1 against Harbaugh. Tell me the what you think the temperature check is on that, because obviously he signed a gigantic contract, so it's almost like the Jimbo Fisher situation. It's like I think he's pretty safe, but I guess in the ever changing world of college football, we've seen some crazy buyouts before. What do you make of what's going on with that? And there's no way they fire him this year if he has a bad year, right?
Yeah, whatever happens this year, I don't think he gets fired just because how big that contract is and how big that buyout is. I don't think he gets fired no matter what happens this season. But he is under competitive pressure. When you're in the top 10 of highest coaches paid in the country, you're going to be under pressure the whole season. Maybe not job security pressure, but just competitive pressure to win games and perform up to that expectation.
Yeah, I think we were all. I mean, I know he had a great season, and I don't want to say like they should have signed him. I think everyone would have signed him in that scenario, but it was the amount of money that I think we all just went, whoa. Maybe that adds into the pressure, I'm sure. But what's your overall, like, if you had to do a letter grade right now? Because I think it's also hard. And look, I was rooting for Colorado, so when they got Mel Tucker, I was on the fence when they hired him about the hire, because I think Saban assistants. I know everyone says, well, Kirby Smart. But you also have, for every Kirby Smart, there's a Jeremy Pruitt who just got hit with over 200 sanctions. There's a Derek Dooley, that you can go on and on and on about some of them where that they haven't had the best, track record after Saban. So I was a little on the fence as a Colorado fan. Obviously, the way he left Colorado was very ugly, but he was also a first-year coach during COVID, so I feel like that needs to be an asterisk next to that whole season. But what would you give like the letter grade right now of the Tucker era?
Ooh, letter grade. Ugh. I
know
like
I know I'm hot
B
potato.
minus.
B, okay,
yeah, kind of B range. But going back to when they hired him, because Mark D'Antonio stepped down, I think it was February. Like in February. So that's after all the whole coaching carousel thing is pretty much all wrapped up. Then D'Antonio steps down, and then you're kind of left with, okay, who do we go hire? It kind of, the hiring of Tucker. Yeah. Well, no one really called it a home run hire, but also people were kind of uncertain. They didn't know. So.
And when you guys tried to get Fickle, I think first, right? So the Fickle thing didn't happen. And then I guess Tucker came into his own. Patty C, what do you make of the Tucker era right now?
Well, getting Ohio State defensive coordinators seems to be a very on-brand thing for Michigan State.
You mean Fickle? You mean
Fickle?
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Because I was
Antonio
like,
before.
Okay, yeah.
It's just like they're not a flashy school, and they relish playing the underspoken kind of underdog role. And getting the better of like these glamour programs like Michigan and Ohio State, which have done it several times. Prior to D'Antonio, they had one 10-win team in the history of their program in 1965. He gets 6 in 13 years, including 6 in an 8-year period.
And the CFP run, he made it.
Yeah,
the CFP. Yeah.
The expectations in East Lansing must have gone through the roof. Then Tucker gets, if you take out D'Antonio, really the second 10-win season in school history, obviously minus Tucker or minus D'Antonio.
Let me ask you this question, Patty C, because I know Brendan's a Michigan State guy and he covers Michigan State, so I don't want to actually put him necessarily on all that pressure there of answering this. But do you think Michigan State and D'Antonio were able to capitalize on that because Michigan was down and Penn State was down still after, remember the disaster they had with the scandal, and then they had Bill O'Brien. So it was just Penn State seemed kind of
maybe a little, but whatever. Michigan State was dominant. I don't really take anything away from teams go up, teams go down. I think Michigan State beat Ohio State. They beat Ohio State several times.
They almost beat them the other time.
So
they
the
went
fact
for two,
that they
right?
slapped Michigan and Penn State around during that era does not take anything away from what Michigan State did during
That's fair. Look, I was playing devil's advocate. I'm just saying, I think some people tend to think that I've been in many college football arguments on social media and stuff, and sometimes, people say that, and I go, well, I mean, D'Antonio's a pretty damn good coach. I think
the more hard teams you play, yes, it makes it harder.
Yeah. So anyway, look, we're going to talk about the 2023 season. We're going to talk the offense, defense, special teams, transfer portal. Then we're going to go game by game on the schedule. But before we do that, I gotta tell you that the Michigan State Spartans 2023 season preview episode on the college football experience is brought to you by Circa Sports. Yes, Circa Millions and Circa Survivor are back. $14 million in guaranteed prizes are up for grabs. Look, in Circa Millions, what you do is 5 NFL picks ATS each week against the spread. Circa Survivors, you just pick a different money line winner each and every week of the season. Obviously, you can't pick the same team twice. That's how Survivor works. But you can enter in Las Vegas, play from anywhere. Sports Gambling Podcast. Also, our crew will be out there last weekend in August. If you're in the area, please feel free to hit us up. Circasports.com for all the details. Once again, circasports.com. What would you do with $14 million? Circasports.com. Check it out. All right, we are back on the college football experience. Michigan State Spartans 2023 season preview. And one of the things I will say, and I think Brendan would agree with me here, is that one of the things when he had that great run in 2021, Mel Tucker, they really nailed the portal correctly. I thought that, the Kenneth Walker get from Wake Forest was so huge, but not only that, I feel like they just brought in a lot of key pieces. Would you agree with that statement, Brendan?
Absolutely. I mean, Kenneth Walker was absolutely a home run get from Michigan State. Should have been in New York for the Heisman ceremony, in my opinion. That's a different topic for a different day. So yeah, I think he really hit a home run in the transfer portal before that season.
Yeah. So this is, and they're kind of one of the first teams, because as we shifted into this era of transfer portal stuff, they were one of the first ones to me that really hit a home run. And now I think you see so many teams probably copying that format or trying to do something similar to that. This year though, you could make the case it might have hurt them more than it helped them. We're gonna get into it here, because departing. Your starting quarterback for the past couple of years, Payton Thorne, goes to the Auburn Tigers, and I'm going to ask Brendan here in a second. Was that a shock? Did you see the writing on the wall, or was that a shock?
That was a shock to me. There was nothing really leading up to it saying like, oh, Thorne's going to enter. There wasn't a whole lot of noise surrounding it. So Thorne entering it was a shock to me personally. But I wasn't shocked to see a quarterback enter the portal, if that kind of makes sense, because there was a quarterback battle throughout the spring. There's going to be a quarterback battle going into the fall here.
Okay. So yeah,
massive.
I was very surprised at that, because he had so many starts,
touchdowns, 21 interceptions. It's a tough guy to lose.
Yeah. And then
in the last 2 years.
Well, at the same time, I feel like simultaneously, I don't know if it was the same day or not, but Keon Coleman, their star wideout, goes to Florida State. This guy's going to be in the NFL. I was perplexed at that too. Now, I understand Auburn and Florida State's NIL collective probably offered a lot of money, but Michigan State has money too. I mean, I'd be a little surprised. But what about that one? Were you taken back by that one?
I was, yeah. I mean, both of them were the same day. It was like a Sunday early afternoon East Coast time. Like I think it was around like 12:31. We're just scrolling through social media, and I see Thorne and Coleman entering the portal. They were probably like 30 minutes apart, so that was kind of a crazy day. So yeah, I was kind of shocked to see Coleman enter, and then his comments I think in June he made comments on a podcast saying, "Oh, he served his like 2-year jail sentence in East Lansing," and he said his plan was always to come back down south because he's from Louisiana. So yeah, I guess his plan was always to come back down south, but it still was shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean, he was
his 2-year jail sentence, building his career.
Yeah, we're supposed to feel sorry for you. Yeah.
He was leading receiver on the team last year. So
yeah, it's like, come on, man.
Leading touchdown maker from scrimmage. You lose your quarterback with that. That's two pretty big players.
Those are two big losses. Some others, safety AJ Kirk's in the portal. He hasn't landed anywhere. Quarterback Hampton Fay is in the portal. Hasn't landed anywhere. Tavion Brown, linebacker spot in the portal, hasn't landed anywhere. Defensive end Chase Carter, Incarnate Word, FCS school, decent FCS school, but I was a bit surprised to see a little in-conference transfer when defensive end Jeff Pietrowski went to Wisconsin. All right, because I mean, I guess they got Berger from Wisconsin a year ago, so maybe it happens more than I realized. Also, running back Elijah Collins went to Oklahoma State, and the mullet Mike Gundy, athlete Tate Halleck went to Western Michigan. Then we had wide receiver Jermaine Bernard go to Washington. I was a bit surprised on that. I mean, I guess Washington uses their wideout so well, but wide receiver Terry Lockett to Eastern Michigan, and kicker Jack Stone out to Baylor. Defensive lineman Jalen Hunt to the Houston Cougars. Defensive lineman Deshaun Mallory to Arizona State, and defensive end Michael Fletcher, a 4-star transfer get for Appalachian State. Hey, watch out, App State getting a nice piece there. Apparently, according to 24/7 Sports. Incoming though, because you got to grade both. And I tell you, as a like Jalen Sami, the defensive lineman from Colorado, he was like one of the few good players on Colorado's team. So I actually think that's a decent get. Wide receiver Alante Brown coming in from the Nebraska Cornhuskers. You also got Ohio State transfer long snapper Mason Arnold, UConn running back Nathan Carter. Now he's a baller. I was impressed with him. I think he got a bad injury though a year ago, right? Correct me if I'm. Yeah, didn't he have like an ACL or something a year ago?
Not sure what it was, but I know he was banged up last year.
Yeah, but when he was healthy, even the year prior when Jim Moore wasn't there and that team was awful, you'd watch that UConn team, you'd be like, this whole team sucks except that guy. That guy's not bad. So that might be a nice get for them. UMass linebacker Aaron Alexander, running that Don Brown defense, hops on over to be with Mel Tucker. Defensive lineman Dre Butler from Liberty. I'm intrigued about these Liberty transfers to see how because there's been a few of them all scattered throughout college football. I know Baylor got their linebacker. See how they do in the Power 5 level. They also got tight end Jalen Franken from Wisconsin. They're just trading They're just trading back and forth. They also got Samar Melvin, a corner from Wisconsin. Jaron Mangum, who I know, running back from South Florida, but was previously at Colorado with Mel Tucker. So that one makes sense. I actually think he's from Michigan too, if memory serves me correct. Then you have defensive lineman Jarrett Jackson from Florida State. A tight end transfer Adamola. Oh man, Falahe. I'm probably butchering it, from Norfolk State. My apologies if so. Tight end Tyneo Hopper from Boise State. I do know that's a good get there. Defense, and then it wouldn't be a team without a big time transfer from Texas A&M. Patty C. As we preview all 133 teams. Ton Messi. How do I pronounce? Do you know how to pronounce this one correctly, or are we just the blind leading the blind?
Yeah, I looked this up the other day because I knew you were going to get to this name, and I know you have trouble pronouncing names. So you ready for this one?
Yeah.
Tunmise Adelaide.
Tunmise Adelaide, and look, he's a 4-star transfer. This is a great get for Michigan State.
Nice.
And then
couple running backs. You said Mangum and who was it? Nathan Carter.
Yeah.
Couple of
and they had Broussard year prior come in from Colorado, so basically getting that backfield back. Jonathan Kim is the final get to kicker from North Carolina. As much as I want to say, because I do think they got some good players. Like I actually think they got some good players, but man, when you lose Keon Coleman and Payton Thorne, it's hard to really say you won the portal. Brendan, would if you had to say win or lose, did they win the portal in your eyes?
I'd give it a slight loss. I don't think it's anything super significant where this team is going to drop off by like 3 or 4 wins. Because they did get some good players. I like the running backs they got. Adelaide is a great defensive end. I like Sammy. You mentioned him from Colorado. So they still got good pieces back. Obviously, losing Coleman, losing Thorne hurts 100%.
Yeah, and I think that's the real reason. Is there any chance they would still look for a quarterback in August when the portal opens back up, or would that be a little too long in the tooth?
I don't think so. I mean, portal windows. Unless it be a grad transfers can enter whenever. Yeah, I think that they like what they got with Noah Kim and Kaden Hauser, who they'll battle throughout fall.
I know Joe Burrow was kind of like the outlier. I feel like when he went to LSU, it was like a late August thing, and all of a sudden, and Cincinnati almost got him, and then all of a sudden,
and he blows up.
Well, they didn't win the Natty that year, but they still look really good. He still looked really good. And you're like, whoa. I wonder if there'll be any more of those. Spencer Sanders, I think, is one. People are monitoring that situation in Oxford. Yeah. So, okay, well, slight lose to the portal. The offense a year ago. Now Jay Johnson's still running the offense. He came over with Mel Tucker from Colorado. Scoring offense 90th a year ago. Rush offense 110th, and that one stood out to me because when I think of Mel Tucker, I know he hasn't been a head coach that long, but normally it's like power running.
Oh, with Kenneth Walker, it was.
Yeah, even at Colorado, I know they were 5-7, but there's a strong emphasis on the run. 110th is pretty surprising to me. 57th in pass offense, 96th in total offense. What was the real problem? You think it was just the offensive line or just the whiff on the running back? I know Berger was a huge recruit out of New Jersey. What do you take as the real problem a season ago from the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, just the run game as a whole was abysmal. I don't think the running backs per se were bad. Like Berger, you said, I think he's a good back overall. Broussard's not bad. Elijah Collins, not bad. Collins is now at Oklahoma State. So I point a lot towards the offensive line. They were banged up a lot. I remember last year for the spring game, they couldn't have a regular spring game because the offensive line was so banged up. Ton of injuries there. That bled into the season, and throughout the season picked up a couple more injuries to some of the key guys. So I put it more on the offensive line. Where you look at the 2021 season, they ran like 9, 10, 11 players deep on that offensive line, and they had some decent depth, and you saw the results in 2021.
Yeah, you're right. And it's always such a, going through all these things, you never know how banged up a team was, as far as depth. It's one of those things that you don't really get the clippings on that. Oh, they're back. That matters in football so much.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. Payton Thorne, a little step back last year in terms of production. The previous year, 2021, 27 touchdowns.
Offensive line related, probably.
Yeah,
part
27
of it,
touchdowns, 10 interceptions. This past year, 19 and 11. So, and I noticed his yards per attempt 6.9, adjusted yards per attempt 6.6. That's pretty darn low. As far as receivers, average yards per catch, the highest was 13.8. For someone who was watching more closely than I was, is this a team that just did not have a deep threat? Were they just checking it down a lot?
They had wideouts, man.
They did. They had Reed, who's in the Jaden Reed, who's in the NFL now with the Packers, and obviously Keon Coleman. So they had good receiving talent. I still point back to the offensive line, and Thorne was injured as well throughout the year. I hate to keep harkening back on the injuries, but it can make or break a season.
Yeah, it certainly can. And I know Thorne, I think it was like the Western Michigan game. He took a shot in that Western Michigan game. I remember watching. It
was around the third quarter where he picked up an injury, and that just lingered, and a couple other things piled on. So,
yeah. So 6 starters back on this offense. Now, the hard part for me is like Noah Kim. I see he's penciled in as a starter. I know you just said there'll be a competition, so who knows if he gets the start. Just if you had to lean right now, would it be Kim?
Yeah, I would go Kim.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that he's ever started a game. I know he got in on a game or two, right? But he's never started a game, correct?
Yeah, no, he has not started a game. I mean, if you look at his stats, they're quite impressive. 73% completion percentage, 174 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. But that's all garbage time stats right there. He played like the fourth quarter against Ohio State this past year. He played the Minnesota game, and he actually scored the only points for Michigan State in that game. But it's a lot of those stats are garbage time.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a question mark. They do have Jalen Berger back, who was, like I said, 5-star recruit out of New Jersey originally. Him, Mangum, Nathan Carter, the running back position looks pretty solid if they can hammer home the offensive line. Wide receiver position, Tre Mosley is back. Tell me about the wide receiver position, because losing Coleman, I know you're bringing in the kid from Nebraska. This is got to be just a huge drop off considering you're losing 2 NFL caliber wideouts, right?
I would think so. Mosley's decent. He's back. He's gonna be the leader of the receiving room. But there's a lot of young, talented guys there. I think you'll see Alante Brown, the Nebraska transfer, here and there this season. Tyrell Henry's a sophomore. He's one to watch. Jaron Glover. So there's a couple. There's probably like 6 or 7 young guys that I think I'll see time. It's just who's gonna be 2 and 3 behind Tre Mosley.
Yeah.
We don't know that yet. There's uncertainty.
And I know you guys have Antonio Gates' son, right? Are we going to see him on the field a decent chunk, you think, this year?
I think you will. He made a great catch in the spring game over the shoulder. Noah Kim threw that pass to him, I believe. So yeah, you'll see Gates this year.
Keep an eye out for that, folks. So to me, the first thing I'll say is like I have question marks at the quarterback spot. Now, yes, Payton Thorne has started a lot of games, but he did struggle a little bit last year. So maybe Noah Kim can put up similar, if not better stats. But I am a little concerned at the wide receiver spot, even though they might have some guys. I just expect a little bit of regression there. The offensive line, I see that you get 4 or 5 starters back on the O line. So and you just think mix that with health, it's got to be better this year. Like I feel like that's just got to be a fact, right?
Yeah, I think they'll take a jump. I think they got a couple of really good guys. Samak, center, he's a good player. JD Duplain, he'll play probably left guard. They also got a JUCO transfer, Keyshawn Blackstock. He'll probably be in the rotation, if not starting. So they do have talent there, and the key is health. Again, like they cannot get injured like they did last season. I know some of that's luck, but if they just stay healthy, I think the offensive line can take a big jump.
Okay. Patty C, what do you think? I mean, like this, I feel like the O line will be better, but there's just some questions to me regarding the quarterback and wideouts.
4 out of 5 starters back on the offensive line.
Always huge,
yeah,
right?
I mean, the rushing defense was 55 last year, top half of the country. So if they can start to lean on the
rushing defense,
or no, the rushing offense.
No, it was 110.
110.
Yeah,
That's right. I'm looking at the wrong. Yeah. Wow. Then they're really going to need to take a step forward.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's talk the defensive side of the ball because this is one that so Scotty Hazelton, who I remember this guy at Kansas State, and I want to say he was maybe at North Dakota State before that. I can't recall. I'm trying to, but I remember his year at K State. I was really impressed, and I know that 2 years ago they had the worst pass defense, but last year they did take some strides in that area. 7 starters back on the defensive side of the ball on a defense that was 75th in scoring defense a year ago, but 101st against the run, 86 against the pass. So they improved by a drastic amount. 131 or 130 it was, whatever. I think it was 130 teams that year. So they jump up 44 spots in pass defense. Still charting
still at
the 100th best defense. What do you think about Hazelton? Has there been a demand maybe to shake it up and go with a different DC, or is this just be patient, the system's going to work?
No, there's been definitely some rumblings by the fans, just kind of tired of Hazelton, and they play a lot of like kind of 3-3-5, dropping a lot of guys back, giving receivers a little buffer at the line of scrimmage. So you watch D'Antonio's defenses of the past, they're jamming guys at the line of scrimmage, they're aggressive. That's not really Hazelton. He runs more of a bend but don't break defense, and you see it with the pass defense rankings. They haven't been very good, so fans want improvement.
Yeah. So the defensive side of the ball, bringing back 2 of 4 on the defensive line, but I actually thought getting the A&M transfer, the Colorado transfer, I know Avery Dunn is another guy they're excited about. I actually think, even though they're bringing back 2 of 4, if you just look at it, if you look at that 10 years ago, you'd be paranoid. You'd be like, oh man, but the transfer portal is such a vehicle to bring in talent. I think the defensive line is going to be fine.
You're right about that. 118th in the nation in turnovers created on defense. So maybe need to get away from the bend, don't break. Identity.
Attack it a little more.
Yeah.
How do you think the D line will be? Is this an area that you should say is a strength of this team, you think?
I would say so. I think they got a lot of good depth. Obviously, they have like 3 or 4 transfers coming in just on the D line alone. The A&M transfer on delay. You mentioned Sammy. I think he's really good against the run. He'll be an asset this year. Got just for like probably 8, 9, 10 guys that can play and they can absorb some of those injuries. They got good depth, I think.
Yeah, and then the linebacking core, you got to be impressed about bringing back essentially everybody, right? Darius Snow's back, Kyle Halliday, Jacoby Windman, all back. I mean, I feel like if there's a strength right now that I see in this team, it would be the probably the front seven. Secondary, as we alluded to, I guess some concern still, but they do bring back Charles Brantley. He is and Malik Spencer. I guess this is a big question for the defense. How will the secondary be, do you think, in this upcoming season?
I do want to mention Charles Brantley did enter the portal the same day Thorne and Coleman did, but he withdrew 2 days later. So that was a huge recruiting win for Michigan State because he's the best player in the secondary. And it's also important to note Xavier Henderson is off to the NFL. He was the leader of that secondary. He could have gone to the NFL after the 2021 season. Decided to come back to East Lansing for 2022. Now he's gone. So they lose the leader in the secondary, but they do get Brantley back. That's still the question mark of the defense.
Yeah, I still think, man, but I think the front seven should be probably stronger than it was a year ago. So I think the defense probably improves a little bit, but
Holiday a beast. What 17th in the nation in total tackles with 117. I think you have to, or 120 rather, 11 tackles for loss. I think Mel Tucker is going to get this defense going again.
Yeah, I expect some improvement there. New kicker, new punter. If we look back, at what happened a season ago, that can always play a role. They bring in the transfer from Carolina at kicker, but they played played that double overtime game against Wisconsin, played a 1-score game where they upset the Illini in Champaign, and also a 1-score game with Rutgers and a double overtime game with Indiana. So that could be a huge thing there with breaking in a new kicker, and the punter was the best in the nation last year. So we're gonna go game by game on the schedule and talk about Sparty football in 2023, folks. But before we do that, I want to tell you that the college football experience, Michigan State Spartans 2023 season preview, it's brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Best Ball Mania is here, and Underdog's giving away $15 million in prizes. Look, Underdog Pick'em is a great way to get down on your favorite MLB and NFL season player props. When college football season rolls around, they do this for college football player props too, especially those week. You get bored on those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday games, and it's Sunbelt or MAC or something. You can have a lot of fun with and you'll hear me talking about them because we've been with Underdog for a few years. There's so many ways to win over on Underdog, and Underdog's available in so many different states. Head on over to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use that promo code SGPN for 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Once again, that's UnderdogFantasy.com. Promo code SGPN. All right, we are back on the college football experience, Michigan State Spartans preview. And if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/the college experience. Remember, folks, we also host the college basketball experience. So when the season tips, we are here every single night of the season, and our conference previews will be coming out shortly here. Probably by the time you're listening to this, we just dropped an episode the other day regarding the Bob Huggins situation and some other portal news. So subscribe to the college basketball experience. And that's on the same YouTube channel. So youtube.com/the college experience. Subscribe over there as well. Shout out to Cam Kerr, our graphics guy. If you're watching this on YouTube, you see in the top right hand corner, 5.5 wins is the win total for Sparty. Patty C when you just first hear that, you think, come on, Michigan State's been a pretty damn good program over the past 20 years.
They're going to bounce back. We've seen other teams bounce back. We saw Michigan go we saw Penn State bad COVID going year. 2-5 in the COVID. We saw Michigan go 4-6 or whatever it was in the COVID.
No, I think they didn't play 10 in the
maybe
COVID.
3-5, whatever the hell it was. Look, these teams that are talented, they tend to bounce back. You have a tough year, things don't break your way, and then you figure out things and things do break your way, and all of a sudden you look like a great coach again.
Now they were, I guess, they were 3-1 in 1-score games, which is pretty surprising considering they had a bad year. That's something to note. But Brendan, first thought, I know we're gonna get into the schedule, but are you like me where it's normally when you see 5.5, you say, no, this team will be a bowl team, right? First reaction, right?
Yeah, first reaction, I think they hit the over. I mean, you look at 2021 winning 10 games of the regular season. You look at last year winning 5. You got to think maybe average that out a little bit.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Yeah, especially just the fact that, as you alluded to, they were very unhealthy last year, and that the odds that happens to the same team back to back is very unlikely. But let's get into it. Friday, September 1st, Central Michigan comes to town, and I don't know how I got this, but this offseason I did get. I don't know how I got this, but an email from I have never been to Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I have never had any connection to the University of Central Michigan, but I did see an email. I think someone forwarded me that just knows that I cover college football from Jim McElwain to the alumni. An email saying like, "Hey, we're going to be a lot better. I apologize for this past season. We're going to be like, we are contenders in the MAC coming forward this year. And our goal is to win the MAC." And so, I mean, I got a little inside scoop on Central Michigan. I do think they'll be vastly.
You gotta like that. A little, accountability.
Little accountability. I do think Central Michigan will be improved. But I mean, I would still favor Michigan State on Friday, September 1st. But I will say this: if Michigan State does struggle at the quarterback spot, I know Kim's put up good numbers in the little time we've seen him. I do think Central Michigan is going to be a bowl team, and I think they are contenders in the MAC. So I buy into to what he emailed. I will still take Michigan State to win this game. But if you get some quarterback struggles, it is little brother. It is an opportunity. Patty C, you taking Michigan State to take down the chips, fire up chips?
I'm sure the Michigan State fans like to hear you referring to someone else's little brother. So Central Michigan certainly fits that bill in this rivalry. 3-8 all time. I don't think this year is any exception to that. Sparty gets it done.
Brendan, are you? I know you're a Michigan State guy. You cover the team. Is there any way, and are you at all worried about this matchup?
I'm not worried in the sense that they're going to lose, but I do think Central Michigan's going to keep it close. Last time I checked the spread for this, I think Michigan State was favored by 14.5. So if that stays above 14, I'd take Central Michigan against the spread, but MSU wins straight up.
Yeah, I kind of lean the same way. Like, cause these are one of those games. This is why I encourage all the schools to schedule like the group of fives that are close to them, because I know it's dangerous. We saw JMU beat Virginia Tech.
Hello.
We've seen, whatever. ECU has great success against Carolina and Virginia Tech too, and all these. But I'm just saying in general, it is one of these things where you got to think like, I know Michigan State's going to be motivated for a brand new year. They don't want to be having a losing year, but Central Michigan's like, man, I didn't get recruited by them. I grew up here. Yeah. I didn't get recruited by them.
Different level of motivation.
Yeah. Sure. So week 2, the Richmond Spiders, they're an FCS playoff team a year ago with Reese Yadinsky. Unfortunately, this team lost a ton if you're a Richmond Spider fan. So I look for this one to get pretty ugly. I think Richmond's due for a lot of regression this year. Patty C, what do you make of the Spiders coming up to Spartan Stadium on September 9th?
Despite obviously Richmond having a better record, not even anywhere in the same ballpark as far as talent composite. Michigan State number 34 nationally in talent composite. They're going to kill them.
Yeah, especially knowing Richmond lost so many pieces. I mean, there's no way you're taking. I mean, obviously you're a Michigan State guy, so I'm just going to say, how many touchdowns do they win by?
Win by. I'll go with like a 49-10 type of game here.
Okay, yeah, it seems on par. And then the big one, it was pretty crazy to see this. They're putting this on Peacock. Now, luckily, I work at a job where we get every game ever. But if I was a Michigan State fan, I'd be pretty furious. They're going to make you essentially buy Peacock, and this is a very good game. The Washington Huskies, who are a preseason top 10 team, Michael Penix and Caleb DeBauer, and just a ton of offensive firepower, come into Spartan Stadium. Patty C, a year ago, Washington got the best of Sparty, but revenge is a real thing. Any chance you're taking Sparty for the upset? I wonder what this line will be.
It's a good question, but I do feel like Washington's a better team. How much is East Lansing a challenge for the Huskies?
That's what I'm saying. It's a tough environment. Like, as much as like I feel like, yeah, Washington, especially on a neutral site, or I would say like I feel good about
much better quarterback situation at Washington. Penix,
I'll take Washington, but I wouldn't be surprised this is 28-28 in the 4th.
Not at all. Not at all.
Brendan, I know you're you cover Michigan State, but I'm curious, what do you think the score will be, and also who you taking to win this game?
Yeah, I got the spread for you pulled up right here. Washington is favored by 11.5 right now. Obviously,
Wow.
still 2
I'll
games to
take the
play
points
for
all
each
day.
team. But yeah, I still think Washington's going to win this game, especially if Penix is healthy. He's a heck of a quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And I think that Michigan State secondary is going to have a hard time against Washington's receivers. So I'll take Washington.
I think DeBauer's one of the more underrated coaches too. I know me and NC Nick were bullish on when Washington hired him. We were bullish on when Fresno got him because he had been an OC previously at Fresno and then an OC at Indiana. And if you look at his track record prior to that at the small schools he was at, he was pretty phenomenal. But I always thought he schemed up defenses really, really well.
Sparty gets him at home this year. It's a long trip from
It is a long
Seattle.
Trip. It is.
With revenge on the mind for Sparty. I got him covering.
Yeah, I got him covering too. You were trying to say something bold.
The money line is tempting, but I'm not going to go there.
Well, week 4, and I think this is a pivotal game, in my opinion, for the season. The Maryland Terrapins come into Spartan Stadium. Patty C, I think you buy into Maryland a little more than me.
I do, but I also think I buy into Michigan State more than you do.
Okay. Well, I think this is a 50-50 game, but I'm going to give this to Sparty because at the end of the day, I trust Mel Tucker more than Mike Loxley. Give me Sparty to beat Maryland on home, and it's homecoming. You throw in the fact that it's homecoming Saturday, September 23rd. What are you doing here, Petty C?
Tucker, you're right. Seems more like a straight hard-nosed defensive coach, whereas Loxley has like the ghetto used car salesman. He's we're from DC. It's Eastern Motors, where your car's your credit. That's what Mike Loxley is going for him. So I'll give this to Sparty and Mel Tucker.
I mean, this is going to be a 1-score game, I would think, though. Brendan, what are you doing here?
Yeah, I'm just going to straight up say it. I'm not very high on Maryland this year. They lose 2 NFL draft picks along the offensive line. I think they bring a couple of transfers in there. The defensive line is inexperienced. So I'm not super high on Maryland this year. And new offensive coordinator in College Park, Josh Gaddis. He was at Michigan.
That's right.
He went to Miami last year. We all know how bad Miami was last year. He was at Michigan before Miami. So Michigan State, Josh Gaddis, a little bit of familiarity there. So I'm going to go Spartans here.
Yeah, I think Sparty gets this thing.
I'm not so low on Gaddis as some of you guys might.
They brought in Sumlin too. They have Sumlin on that offense too. They got
the brothers unite.
Yeah. Then the following week, now they go into Kinnick. Now at least you're not getting them when it's super cold, which I always feel like helps your chances. But I know Michigan plays in the cold, so I'm kind of bullish on this Iowa team this year and what they did in the portal. I got Iowa. If Iowa was if this was in East Lansing, I think I might take Michigan State, but in Iowa City, Iowa's they're another animal there, man. They win. They hold the Michigan State offense to 14 points and they score 16 game winning field goal. Ferentz doesn't meet the 25-point expectations. Patty C, what are you doing here at Kinnick?
I would have to agree that I think Iowa's on a different level. Most recently, they played 2 or 3 years ago, 2020. Iowa won 49-7. Prior to that, though, like 3 straight wins for Michigan State. So, but I don't think Michigan State's at the level where Iowa is this year.
And Iowa actually, I like McNamara in that offense. That's exactly who they needed. Someone who doesn't turn the ball over like Petrus would.
Yeah, he can run the offense. He can game manage, but has an extra element of playmaker there. Yeah, I got to give this one to Sparty though.
Sparty.
Wait.
Oh no, you're giving it to the Hawkeyes. Okay.
Hawkeyes.
Brendan, what are you doing here in Iowa City?
Kinnick is a tough place to play, and I think that defense for Iowa is going to be one of the best in the nation. But you look back at last year, Illinois also had one of the best defenses in the nation last year. Michigan State went on the road to beat them. Obviously, Iowa's probably a tougher place to play than Illinois. But still, I'm going to go Iowa, but don't count out Michigan State here. I still think this can be a winnable game, but I still lean Iowa.
Iowa never scores enough points where you feel like everything's a for sure lock. You know what I mean? They could be playing Northwestern and you'd be like, well, I think I was going to win this, but
that's why Payton Thorne might have been nice, but they don't have it. So without an experienced quarterback,
that's true. That's very, very true. They get a bye week on October 7th. Now October 14th, Patty C. Does the same go for Greg Schiano and his defense with the Scarlet Knights in Piscataway? This was a 1-score game a season ago. I know I've been on record as saying I think Rutgers is going to go or could go. I think they're going to be right around 5-7 or 6-6. So I think this game's a little trickier because Michigan is on deck. But if we're going game by game, I got to take Michigan State to win this. But if you were telling me that Rutgers knocked them off, I would not be that surprised because of the situational spot. They got the emotional game with Michigan on deck. Remember what happened last year? The fight, the locker room, all this other stuff, right? So you got that game looming. I know you're coming out of a bye week, but I kind of think Rutgers, now that Rutgers draws Northwestern week 1, I just think that's a beautiful scenario for them to make a bowl potentially
Gain
this
some
year.
confidence.
I'm still taking Michigan State because I think they have a better roster, but it scares me a little bit. This game scares me a little bit, which is, I don't think anyone's been scared of Rutgers for since Brian Leonard. But what are you doing here, Patty?
Michigan State by 16.
Oh, 1-score game a year ago in East Lansing. You think, okay. Brendan, am I a fool to think this could be a sneaky game for Sparty?
No, I'm actually with you on this. I think Rutgers is going to be a little bit sneaky this year. Might pull off an upset. Now, they're not going to beat like Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State.
Yeah,
but I still think I think they could make a bowl game. That wouldn't shock me. I'm still leaning Michigan State coming off the bye. And Rutgers the week before, they traveled to Madison to play Wisconsin. Could be a little bit beat up there, but yeah, I'm going to go Michigan State.
Okay, so that puts us. That puts. I think we're all on the same level right now. That we'd have them at 4-2, right? Central Michigan, Richmond, Maryland, and Rutgers as the wins, and then October 21st, Michigan comes to town. And look, I would love to see an upset here. I really would. And the fact he's still got a winning record against Harbaugh is hilarious to me. But I think Michigan just bringing back all those pieces. If some of those guys had gone, I would be like, okay. But
that's asking a lot.
Yeah, I think Michigan gets them. But these games are crazy, man. These games are always crazy. So it wouldn't shock me if Sparty beat them here.
22-point loss on the road last year. The home field advantage in this particular series seems like it's a pretty big deal.
Who are you taking, Petty C?
I'm taking Michigan head straight up.
Yeah. Brendan, I know you cover Sparty, so if you want to pass on this, you can. But what are you doing here on October 21st?
Yeah, I'll go Michigan. I know Spartan fans might not want to hear that, but I'm gonna go Michigan. I think they're a college football playoff contender, national title contender. They're loaded on the offensive line yet again, loaded on the defensive line yet again. I think Harbaugh gets back to 500 here against Mel Tucker. Yeah,
I think so too. The very next week, they head to Huntington Bank Stadium in Minneapolis to row the boat against PJ Fleck. Now, PJ Fleck, see, here's the problem for me. Fleck's never beaten Iowa, and he plays Iowa the week before, and I fully expect them to lose the game against Iowa. This is another one that I would circle as like super pivotal for the season for Michigan State, but I actually favor Minnesota by a field goal in this one. I think it's anyone's game now. I would not be surprised if Michigan State won this game, but give me Minnesota. Patty C, what are you doing here on October 28th?
I have to agree with you, even though Michigan State obviously has gotten the better of Minnesota in the recent history, with exception to last year. I think, that was the only time that they've played since 2013. There's one other time that they played since 2013. Michigan State with a narrow loss or a narrow win there. So I think Minnesota has closed that gap, and I think at home, I think Minnesota gets them.
Yeah, Brendan, what are you doing here on October 28th in Minneapolis?
Yeah, you look at Minnesota on the surface, they lose their quarterback, lose their running back, but I still like what they got. And Sean Tyler's a really good running back. They got him from Western Michigan. Kyle Akmanis is going to be the new quarterback. He's more of a dual threat guy than Tanner Morgan ever was. So kind of adds a new element to that Minnesota offense. The defense is going to be good. So I'm going to lean Minnesota at home. But again, I think this is a pivotal game if Michigan State wants to make a bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I like this in the Maryland game. I know people are high on Maryland. I'm not one of them either. But if you're doing that game, I think those two I circled while doing this exercise.
The Michigan State Minnesota game is one game I'm looking forward to seeing a little more often now that divisions are going to be done away with in the Big Ten. I think both of those teams have a similar. I think Michigan State probably has a slightly higher ceiling, but Minnesota has a decently high ceiling too.
Just because they're the only school in the state, right?
Yeah.
I feel like,
that could end up being a pretty fun series moving forward.
The very next week, they're in Spartan Stadium in East Lansing, taking on Nebraska. Now, there's two ways to look at this one for me, because I do think Matt Rule's gonna. I don't know if he's gonna bring Nebraska back to the glory they think, but I do think he'll make them good, right? The thing is, he is still a first year coach. He struggled his other first years, first year at Baylor and I believe first year at Temple. They really struggled. But at the same time, Frost lost every game by like a field goal or like a special teams blunder, right? So they were in all these games. So the team's probably more talented than we realize. I would rather get him in September than November. I'll favor Sparty here.
Getting him at home is huge.
But I mean, by that point, it'll kind of be his team by then. Like I think I always say first year coaches, by the time November comes around, they start to really understand what the coach wants.
They might believe, but they're not fully up to speed till year 2, I don't think.
But I would say, I mean, obviously November is where your schedule runs out. So like, if there's any time you're gonna play, you'd rather play a first year coach.
They're gonna be playing the best version of Matt Rule's Nebraska.
I'm gonna take Sparty, but I mean, this is another one that I think I wouldn't be surprised. I like the Jeff Sims addition. I know some people don't think he was very good at Georgia Tech. I think Jeff Sims can work out. And it reminds me of when he had PJ Walker at Temple. But I'll take Sparty. But this is gonna be a close game, I bet. What are you doing here?
I'm with you. I think it's a close Sparty win here.
Brendan, you got this one as a win, November 4th, in East Lansing.
I think it's going to be close. I like Matt Rule as a coach. It's going to take him a little bit to figure it out. I still think, like you mentioned, previous stops, he struggled in year 1, got it going in year 2, and really had a great season in year 3 at Temple, Baylor. Those are the only places he's been. So I like Rule. I'm leaning Michigan State at home. I think they'll be able to win at the line of scrimmage here. But Nebraska, along with the Maryland game and the Minnesota game, those 3 games, I think, could make or break Michigan State's season.
Yeah, and one thing to me that Temple was terrible before Matt Rule, right? Baylor had that scandal, so they really hit like rock bottom there on that. So it makes me a little bit like, it's like we said, like those Nebraska teams. I don't know how Frost was losing those games because they were in so many of them. What was it, 2 years ago where they lost like all 9 games by 1 score? Yeah. That's what makes me a little weary that maybe us looking back at his first year at Temple or his first year at Baylor, even though I said what I said earlier, saying he normally struggles a little bit first year, but I'm like, but I don't know if he's had this good of a roster in year 1. So that's why I think Nebraska is going to be must watch. And I think that's why potentially this game could be a lot more interesting than we realize. But yeah,
what do we have him at win total wise now?
Well, right now I think we're in unison still, which is almost amazing because normally by this point you don't. But I think we had him. So we have him as losses to Minnesota, Michigan, Iowa, and Washington. So 4 losses. Their wins are Central Michigan, Richmond, Maryland, Rutgers, and Nebraska. So what is that? 5-4?
Yeah.
Yep.
5-4, 3 games left. They head to the Horseshoe to take on Ohio State on November 11th. As much as I would love to see Michigan State win this game, and I would love to see Michigan State win this game, I think Ohio State wins this one. Patty C, any chance you take Sparty?
If the game was in the East Lansing, I'd give it a try.
But with this bad of a pass defense, I just feel like you do not want to play Ohio State.
Although Ohio State broke in a new quarterback. I believe it was in Columbus where the 2015 upset happened. Yeah. So maybe some inclement weather intervenes on Michigan State's behalf, and they find themselves in a dogfight, and they can pull another playoff ending game here.
Brendan, what are you doing here at the shoe?
There's no chance they win this game. I mean, this is just a matchup nightmare with Ohio State's wide receivers. If whoever's starting at quarterback for Ohio State, whether it's McCord or Brown, if they just get the ball out to the wide receivers, just get it in their hands, Ohio State's going to win by a lot here. If you look at the last 2 games, Ohio State won at home 56-7 in 2021, and last year 49-20 in East Lansing. So yeah, I like Ohio State here, but if you were to ask me, Does Michigan State have a better likelihood of winning the Michigan game or Ohio State game? I'd say Michigan, partly because they're at home. Even though, despite I still think Michigan's a better team than Ohio State, but I'd lean towards them winning Michigan over beating Ohio State.
I feel like I agree with you there. The back-to-back away here, though. Now they head to Bloomington. Now, see, this is an interesting spot. This is like the reverse Nebraska to me. I know Indiana beat Michigan State a year ago, but I actually think there's a shot Tom Allen might be fired by now.
Mm-hmm.
So if that happens, then you're like, this is one of those games when you break down the schedule.
Mel Tucker's feeling good.
Yeah, you're feeling like, okay, we can take care of business here.
Second end of a back-to-back road, though, following
Indiana's not
a gut punch from Ohio State.
I know Indiana beat them a year ago, but I am not high on this Indiana team, especially. I just think there's so many question marks on this team.
It's a double overtime loss last year.
Yeah. I'm going to take Sparty. So wait, how many wins do I have right now? 5 and 4.
6 now.
If they win this, they hit the over. Fuck it. Give me this win. I think Allen's going to be fired here. I'm actually more nervous about the Nebraska game than this one. Sparty wins in Bloomington. What are you doing here?
Boom. Put me on the same level. 6 and 4. Sparty. Or 6 and 5.
6 and 5. Yeah. Brendan, what are you doing here on November 18th in Memorial?
I'm going Michigan State. Like Colby, you said, I think Allen's fired by here. I don't think Indiana wins a Big Ten game this season. So I like State. Yeah. We just previewed them and I was sitting there like, man, there's so many question marks on this Indiana team. Now we've been doing this a while, Brendan. Me and Patty C for years have been previewing teams and preseason talk. We've always previewed every team, and it's harder and harder to do this with the coming years because of how many new faces and new places. Like that's why. I mean, I think we ended up taking TCU in the over, but none of us had TCU winning the Big 12. Or they didn't win the Big 12. Actually, I had K-State. But my point is that you're in this like. I feel like it's harder to do our job than it was 5-6 years ago when we were doing this, Patty C.
Yeah.
So like when I look at Indiana's team, I took the under, but I was like, they have so many new players. It's almost amazing they didn't hire a new coach because you look at Arizona State or Colorado or Kent State, they have a brand new roster. And, because they have a brand new coach, it's more understandable. Indiana's like a brand new roster, and you're just like, who's this guy?
And for
who's
me,
this guy they're bringing in?
Maybe Colby, he's not a snorkeler. Sometimes I snorkel instead of deep diving. And but it would be nice to have a website that had all of the stats of the team that is currently going to be playing the 2023 season.
Well, you still have like things
at your disposal. But you're trying to like pull stats from all these different places because a million different players are coming in and you're just, you piece it together. It'd be nice if it was all in a sync, and then even have the projected rosters like compared to each other.
But we don't know that because college football, you're kind of,
things are changing into the last minute.
Yeah. And also like Indiana's bringing in a quarterback from Tennessee that's barely ever played. So you're just like, I think they're going to be bad, but so yeah, I got them on the over with that win. And then they have this, hold on. I want to bitch about this game and I'm curious your thought about this.
Please
Brendan,
Please do.
Yeah. Okay. Because this is ridiculous. This is why I am very anti the movement going on in college athletics to the TV execs calling all the shots and the Big 12. I'm sorry, the Big 10 adding these schools in Los Angeles and the SEC having 16 team conferences. What the hell is this game right now? Penn State, Michigan State, 2 years ago, Patty C. I remember doing this episode. We do a reaction show every single Saturday after all the games, and we watched this game occur in the snow in East Lansing. And we thought that was awesome. I remember NC Nick jumped on the show.
Phenomenal looking game.
Well, it was a great game too. And then what's that?
I hate to interrupt, but I was at that game. Phenomenal games in the snow. I was in the crowd. It was a snowball fight the whole game in the crowd. There's two guys in the section over took their shirts off for the entire game. Like all the sections around them were pelting them with snowballs. It was great. There were snowballs flying from the upper deck, hitting the Penn State players and coaches. I mean, hopefully everyone was okay.
A thing of beauty.
It was a blast.
Yeah, no, but that was like everyone came away. I remember we had NC Nick jumped on the show and he was like, that was my favorite game of the whole day. We loved it. We loved that game. It was an awesome watch.
For as cool as Michigan, Ohio State in the snow was.
Yeah.
Michigan State had even more snow, and it was fucking cool.
It was just awesome. And then you see this. So I would be outraged if I was a Spartan fan, but I'm outraged as a college football guy because you move this filthy game into Ford Field in Detroit, where the day after Thanksgiving, and Penn State, a lot of people calling for Penn State to potentially be in the Big Ten championship or perhaps the college football playoff. So Penn State's that's a big ass stadium.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna. I think that's going to be like 50-50, maybe 60-40 to Michigan State, but I think Penn State will travel if they're as good. If Penn State, struggles out the gate or loses to Dub V or something like this, then maybe it's different. But I hate this game. This is a TV exec game, in my opinion. I actually read an article that they're going to be trying to do more of these. And I say, and not necessarily between Penn State and Michigan State, but more of these in NFL stadiums. I hate that. And TV execs, in my opinion, they do not know what is college football. And the more that these games happen, the worse the product's going to be at the end of the day. And it's going to turn people off that have been following the sport for 100 years or 70 years or whatever. You know what I mean? But I actually think by them moving this game, see, I thought if this was in East Lansing, I thought, oh boy,
they're scheduled for the home game this year. This essentially becomes their quote home game.
This is BS. It's BS. How does Michigan State get? If I'm Mel Tucker or the athletic director, I'm irate with this. I'm saying, whoa, what's going on here? We're competing. I get it. Ohio State and Michigan are favored above us. Penn State even this year too. But your edge, they could win that game in Lansing. I feel like them putting in this dome. I think Penn State is going to win this now. Now I know Penn State would probably be favored if it was in East Lansing, but damn it. The chance of the upset is so much higher in East Lansing. They're killing me here. Who are you taking in this game, Patty C?
I agree with you completely that the chance of the upset is much higher in East Lansing. That said, just the flow of college football makes Penn State, who has still not gotten over the hump, this is the second loss on their schedule. They're, after beating Michigan, as I predicted in the regular season, a one loss in conference team.
But it's not even like a true road game. I get it's in Detroit, but like
in position to go to the Big Ten championship, I think
Michigan State gets
them, finishes 7-5 here. But it's going to be a good game. Dude. And yeah, it's way worse at Ford Field than it is in East Lansing.
Well, it's going to be like 50-50, I bet, or 60-40, especially depending on how those Maryland and Nebraska games go. Yeah. But I actually would like their chances of an upset if this is in East Lansing. That's why it's criminal to me. It's criminal.
They're selling themselves short.
Brendan, what are you doing here? Any chance you're going to go to this game, by the way?
I'm considering it. I do think it would be cool to kind of cover it in an NFL press box, but I'd still much rather it be in Spartan Stadium. But I'm totally with you guys. The people who run the sport don't love the sport like we do. That's the problem with college football. It's all these TV executives that are running the sport, calling all the shots. So yeah, that's the main problem. And Michigan State, they only have 3 true home games in the Big Ten.
Yeah, that makes me paranoid. That makes me think I should probably take the under. When you put it like that, I'm like, oh man, because if you lose just one of those, wow, it's tough. That's a tough schedule because like that they really. What is the justification? Like, I wonder.
5 road games, 5 true road games in the Big Ten.
So in their home games,
3 true home games and 1 neutral site game, essentially.
Yeah, and what their home games in conference are: Maryland, who we think. I know I'm not bullish on them, but the average person has them in a bowl game. Michigan, who could win the national championship, perhaps, and Nebraska, who's kind of a mystery team. It's tough, man. I mean, I took the over. I don't feel good about this at all. Did you have Penn State winning this one, Brendan?
Yeah, I have Penn State. Yep.
I think this went from like, I honestly thought this was like almost a 50-50 game in East Lansing to now like a 70% chance Penn State wins this thing. Like in East Lansing, this would have been, I could totally see Penn State's season being ruined in East Lansing, but at Ford Field, man, this saves them.
You might be right. Yeah. And that would be a departure from what we had previously seen, whereas Michigan State is just good enough to screw up Penn State if they get the better of the Ohio State or the Michigan, which they're capable of.
How did this happen? This almost feels like you know how the SEC will protect Georgia's schedule or Alabama's schedule within the conference?
Yeah.
It's always I did a deep dive on this. How does this? Are they trying to get Penn? They know Penn State's like a top 10 team, or is this something that was like the athletic director was like, "Hey, we should play more games at Ford Field"? I don't know, but I'm just curious how this came to Brendan? Do you have any idea on how this came to fruition?
I believe it was presented by NBC because they wanted more November primetime games. And historically, but Big Ten has not played a whole lot of primetime games in November, like at night, like 7:30 local kickoff, 8 o'clock local kickoff. So this was kind of their solution. Oh, we'll put on Black Friday and we'll put it at Ford Field in a dome.
This game sucks. This game bothers me.
Sucks.
This bothers me. I couldn't believe they did this, and I feel sorry for. If you're a Michigan State fan, they're like, "Oh, you can still go to Detroit." No, this is a huge advantage for Penn State.
Even though this is a made-up trophy, what is it? The Land Grant Trophy. Even though they made it up when Penn State joined the conference because Michigan was playing too good for Michigan State, and Michigan State was without a rival. And Ohio State and Michigan were together. Then Penn State came in without a rival, and they're like, "Oh, you guys are perfect." This has been a super competitive rivalry. It's actually a damn good football game.
Yeah.
But it's a shame that they're kind of putting it at a somewhat neutral site.
They're helping. So if I was a Michigan State fan, I'd say, well, next year when we have to go to State College, you're going to put that in Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
I
would say put that in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or something.
Put it in a roller rink.
Yeah.
But I will add one more thing. The AD, Tucker, they're all in on this Detroit game. They're for it. And what kills me is if Michigan State wants to be on the same level of other Big Ten programs like Michigan, like Ohio State, and if you even want to put Penn State up there, would they really give up home games to play at a neutral site NFL stadium?
No,
I don't think
they would not. I wonder if they're saying that because maybe maybe there's a secret deal behind closed doors we don't know about. I have no idea, but it just doesn't make sense to me. I would be outraged if I was a Spartan fan, and I don't think college football gets better because of this. I think it gets worse. So,
amen.
I'm on the over. I don't feel good about it though. When you tell me there's only 3 home games and 2 of them are against teams that are projected to be in bowls, but we went game by game. I'm on the over. Patty, see what are you doing?
I'm on the over. And I think the non-conference slate.
How good? How do you feel good about it? Would you lock this? Okay,
not lock, but
I would not lock this at all. Yeah,
I would if I threw money. I'd feel like I was going to win it.
Okay,
this team should be better than 5.5 wins. This is a bowl team.
Okay, Brendan, how well do you feel about that bowl season projection?
Yeah, I lean over. I think they make a bowl game. But again, tough schedule, one of the toughest in the country. So I'm not super confident, but I'd still lean over.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Okay, folks, look, we're all on the over with Sparty. Folks, and look, if you listened to me last year, I did lock up the under, and that thing cashed. I just thought regression was due after that magical run and losing Kenneth Walker. So but I don't think any of us feel comfortable to lock it up. Patty C feels, I think, better than all of us on this. But anyway, stay tuned. We're breaking down all 133 college football teams. But before we get out of here, I had a chance to sit down with Michael Barker, aka College Football Campus Tour on Twitter. You should give him a follow at CFB Campus Tour to talk about his experiences to East Lansing, to check out Michigan State and their football. So with no further ado, here is that interview. Joining me on the College Football Experience Michigan State Spartans 2023 season preview episode is none other than Michael Barker, aka College Football Campus Tour, which you should be following on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour because his page is absolutely fantastic. Michael's been to every FBS stadium and most of the FCS. And he documents his travel. Sometimes he goes to 4, 5, 6, 7 games a week, and it's just a must follow. And he does the photo of the game. He talks about the history of the stadium. It's just one of those things you got to get over there and follow it if you love football, if you love stadiums in general. Michael, welcome to the show, man, and thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you having me. I always look forward to joining you, and we got big time Big Ten football here to talk about Spartan Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, this stadium, between this and the Big House, Michigan's just got some awesome football stadiums. Love the fact that there's no dome on this. The history of these stadiums, just fantastic. So tell me about the history of Spartan Stadium.
So the nickname is the Woodshed. You get taken out behind the Woodshed. Opened in 1923. What's amazing to me is the original seating capacity was 13,000. So opened in 23 was 13,000, but by 1957 had 75,000. So they built that thing up very quickly. The record crowd, they had 80,401 versus Notre Dame in 1990. Another Notre Dame game that we know as the game of the century in 1966, 10-10 tie. That was at Spartan Stadium. And they also played Michigan in hockey inside Spartan Stadium in 2001, and they got 74,000 for a hockey game. So they got fans showing up to whatever sporting event that you put on at Spartan Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible right there. And I'm looking at the shots right now. If you do the Google image thing, I'm looking at the stadium back in 1924. Looks awesome. It's incredible to think that that's the stadium then, and this is the stadium now. How many times have you been to Spartan Stadium?
So I've been there twice, and they've both been, one in 2019 and one last year. They've both been Friday night openers against G5 schools. 2019, it was Middle Tennessee State, and last year it was Western Michigan. And I've said this before on here, but anytime a P5 plays on a weeknight, you got to take advantage of it. So they won both games handily against G5 opponents, not a surprise. But the most memorable game for me, it was part of a big opening weekend. It was in 2019, and that Friday night, the night before, I went to Clemson. Then I went to Michigan State. Saturday was Vanderbilt versus Georgia. Sunday was Oklahoma with the debut of Jalen Hurts, and then it was a Monday game, Notre Dame at Louisville. So 5 P5s in 5 days. And the other thing, when you go to the opener in September in Michigan, you get great weather. So I do want to get a cold game. I'm trying to hunt down these cold games and get some snow photos. But both times I've been there, great, fun, huge stadium, a lot of improvements, 2 video boards that flank each side of the end zone, on one side, a big one on the other. So aesthetics, history, it's just a cool place to catch a game.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds awesome. And folks, did you hear what he just said? I went to only 5 games in 5 days. That is exactly why you should be following Michael Barker. He does the photo of the game, and he makes it well worth the follow, folks. Give him a follow at CFB Campus Tour. Michael, I appreciate you hopping on, talking about Spartan Stadium. Maybe one day I'll catch you at a game there.
Yeah, that's a fun place, and we might be able to get a double with Michigan too. So that would be a great day.
There we go, man. Thanks for hopping on the show, man, and have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Michael Barker talking about Spartan Stadium. Like, got to get out there for a game. Patty C, let's go. What are we doing?
Cool little stadium there.
Not
underrated.
That Ford Field game. I want to go to a stadium with personality.
It's
compact.
What I mean?
Like,
it's
yes.
50,000 or
history,
so?
Personality, passion, college football. All right. I'm on the over. You're on the over. Brendan's on the over. Folks, give Brendan a follow on Twitter at BMoreCFB. Look, I know if you're watching it on YouTube right now, you see the screen. He says covers Michigan State football for Spartan Illustrated and Rivals, which he does. And he does great work. But he also, I stay looking at his page sometimes. He's got stuff he's talking about, a linebacker for UTEP, stuff like that. He's breaking down all the good stuff. Brendan, I appreciate you hopping on the show, man.
Thanks you guys for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yes, man. And you're welcome back at any time, man. And look, hopefully our ticket hits over on Sparty. Do it. Folks, subscribe to the College Football Experience as we break down all 133 teams with the solo podcast for each and every team in the land. And also I host the FCS College Football Experience. We also host the College Basketball Experience every single night of the season. I've been doing this. We've been doing this shit for years. Noah Beanick and myself on the College Baseball Experience, and you also have the Big 12 Experience. We got some. I'm not on that one, but we got that. It's all in house, all family. Check out that pod. We come together as one on YouTube, youtube.com/the College Experience. That's going to be the hub for all of our stuff. All those other podcasts I mentioned are solo podcasts. Subscribe to those: Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be found. Also get the SGPN app. It's free to download in the App Store and Google Play Store. You'll get access to all of our content. All right. That means college football articles, guest appearances. We just had what was the wrestler we had? I forget the name of, he was on the show. Joe Theismann was on the show. I'm doing we did Carson Steele, former Maction great, UCLA running back.
Anyone with copious amounts of swagger.
Yeah,
we're bringing on here.
Bill Burr's on the show. You got to check it out. You'll enjoy it. And look, also check out our Discord. Come talk Sparty football, basketball, baseball, whatever with us. It really could be like a badminton game going on, and I don't know, the Netherlands. And I feel like we got you covered. All right. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/discord. All right, folks, this is the college football experience, Michigan State Spartan style. You better start thinking about yours, and we out of here.
Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot. And the whole team's looking and the whole world's looking with the cameras. Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot. And you know